Hi guys, Jessie here, also known as That Minnesota Yarn Girl, and today I'm going to bring you an update on where I am at with my progress on the Master Knitter Level 1. Sorry I didn't record last week. I had felt like I had been working on it all week long. I hadn't really gotten a chance to do much actual knitting on any projects, and I just wasn't up to recording an update. But I did feel like I had a pretty good week last week. I felt like it was a week full of small wins, but it felt like it was good to help my momentum move along. I had redone my first two swatches because, as you might have remembered from my previous update, I was not feeling good about the tension. I was struggling with that a lot. But then when I had done my swatches for last week, I felt much better about the tension. I thought it looked much better, so I just decided to try and redo swatches 1 and 2 again, and I did feel much better after they were completed. So that really just helped me feel better because I was, starting to really kind of just feel a little bit discouraged, but that did help me feel better. So like I said, small wins. I went out and bought myself some flowers because I was just excited that I had finally felt good about those first 2 swatches, and then I was through 6 swatches at that point, and so I just was feeling, like I said, much better, helped with the momentum to keep me going forward. So just a quick review, swatches 1 and 2, it was ribbing, and then the first swatch was knit 2, purl 2, ribbing, and then the second swatch was knit 1, purl 1, ribbing. And then the first swatch had garter stitch, and the second swatch had stockinette slip stitch. Both used increases. And I think I said last week that I did the make one increase, but I actually did the bar increase, or the knit front and back, because it created it creates a little purl bump, which just blends right in with the ribbing. So here is my first swatch, redone and completed, and feeling pretty good about that. Swatch 2, as I mentioned, again, stockinette, knit 1, purl 1, ribbing, again, redone and feeling pretty good about it. I did mention when I talked about my preliminary swatch, if you're wondering what these little extra waste yarn is in there for, it's to help measure gauge. That's what they recommend. That's what the Master Knitter program recommends you do, to put those in and then use that to help guide your ruler as to where to measure. And I really like that method of measuring gauge and do plan to continue using that. So that's what that waste yarn is in there for. Swatch 3 is the seed stitch. So like I said, I'm all done with those, and I've now finally answered all questions and everything on swatches 1 through 3, so probably won't be seeing those again. This last week was all about increases. So the swatch 4 then from last week was the bar increase, or the knit front back, as I had mentioned I had already done, but you can see the little purl bumps they're quite evident when it's all stockinette here, so they do stand out. But so that is just the example of the bar increases. I had done those before. That was probably, I think, the first increase I ever learned how to do, so that was not too difficult at all to execute. And then swatch 5 was make ones, and I have also done make ones several times, so again, not very difficult for me to execute. You do have to do mirrored, so you have make ones left and then make ones right. And one thing I had learned previously from Lynn at Unwind Yarn Shop, the nice thing about a good way to remember, if you're when you're not sure, what's the make one left, what's the make one right, when you insert your needle, the way that it lifts the stitch in between, the bar in between, it will either make elongated stitch that almost looks like an L, and then you would knit in the back of that for the make one left, or if you go the other way, then it's going to make like a shortened little stitch that looks like an R, and then you knit in the front for your make one right. The other thing that is like hair, curly hair, one of mine on here. Another thing that it talked about on the swatch information sheet or for this one was a make one open, and I had never actually done one of those before, but it's essentially you put your needle in the same way you would for a make one left, but then rather than knitting through the back, you knit through the front. And they didn't actually have you practice it on this swatch because it's going to be something that we practice in the mitten project at the end. But we did for this on this swatch information sheet have to write out directions on how to execute a make one left, a make one right, and then the open make one. So that was that, but that was fine because it was just, again, something I learned. That what the make one open does is it is another increase, but it leaves like a little hole, like a little decorative hole, similar to a yarn over, I guess, in your increase. And like I said, I'd never actually done one of those before, so I'm kind of looking forward to practicing that when I do the, mitten project. So that was swatch 5. And then swatch 6 was lifted increases. And I had never actually done a lifted increase before either, but this one, I did some practicing on it and it went really well. They were not too difficult at all to execute. So after some practicing, I swatched it up and I felt like it went really well. I do actually really like this increase. I feel like it kind of just blends in really nicely and just it makes the stitches look really fluid. Like you can kind of see that like when you have your make one row, those stitches go in one direction and the rest of your stitches just go straight up and down. But still, it just makes for a nice, fluid, I think beautiful increase. I do plan on probably using this one more often. You should be able to use it in any case that you would use a make one, unless it's, you need to do it every row. Then you're lifting the stitch from underneath, so you couldn't obviously do it every single row. But like I said, I do really like the way that these turned out, and I am going to remember this technique for future projects because I really, really think it looks beautiful. So that is the lifted increases. And again, these are mirrored increases, so you have a lifted left and a lifted right. So that's that one. I did feel like I had to spend a lot of time on research this week, just because, so the way I was doing my research is, so when you are required to submit a swatch information sheet with every swatch that you do. And when you do that, you have to provide 2 references for every single technique that you used on that swatch. And you can only use 1 video reference. So what I had been doing prior is every time I would go to do my swatch, I would do all my research before I would do my swatch, and I would list out all of those techniques that I used in my references for them. Then I would do the swatch and then answer the questions. But what I've been coming to realize is that when like a lot of those questions, obviously I was already seeing those answers when I was doing my research. But then now you have to also cite your references in the questions. So now it was like, oh, what page did I see that on? Or what video did I watch that on again? So then I'd have to like go back and almost like just, I was just like retracing my steps and redoing a lot of the work that I felt like I had already done. So going forward, I plan to do my swatch information sheet references at the same time as writing out my questions. Obviously, you can't answer all of the questions at the same time because some of them do say, well, refer to this swatch and what are your thoughts on the way this looks? And so obviously those I'd have to wait until after the swatch is complete. But at least the questions that require research, I do plan to do at the same time to hopefully minimize some of the time that I actually spend like reading books and watching videos and that kind of thing. So hopefully that will go much faster this week. That is my goal for that. So since I'm on the topic of research, I have been using a reference book. I think it's called Principles of Knitting. I'll give you more information on that next week. But that book, it was a book that I own, but I wasn't really thrilled with the way that some of the things were worded, and it's a very comprehensive book, but some of the things I thought were a little bit confusing. So I went to the library and got 2 other books that have helped me a little bit more, and I just got those last Friday though, so we'll see. Hopefully they'll continue to help me a lot this week, and I will probably give you an update next week regarding all the reference books that I'm using and which ones I like and what I like about them or what I don't like about them. So you can look forward to seeing that next week, as well as the swatches about increases. That's what all of the swatches 7 through 10 are on, increases. So I look forward to seeing you guys next week, and thank you so much for joining me, and I will be back later with another update. Bye.